Today, we're going to connect the dots between three massive stories: a fiery debate over voter rights in India, the new strategic scramble for the Arctic, and a huge infrastructure push that's literally changing a nation.
Sounds like a riddle, right? But believe me, it's the heart of what we're talking about today. See, these aren't just separate random issues. They're all stories about the vast, often invisible systems that shape our world. From the lists that decide who gets to vote, to the strategic maps that define global power, all the way down to the pipes that deliver our drinking water.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with that contentious debate over voter rolls in India. Then we'll jump over to the geopolitical hotspot of Greenland. After that, we'll look at India's massive infrastructure projects before finishing up with a really critical public health issue.
All right, first up, we're diving into a story out of India where a process that's supposed to just clean up voter lists has instead ignited a fierce political firestorm.
19%. Just let that number sink in for a second. In one recent revision in Uttar Pradesh, India's most populous state, nearly 1/5 of voters were just deleted from the rolls. A number that high was absolutely guaranteed to set off some major alarm bells.
Now, the official name for this is a Special Intensive Revision, or SIR, but its critics have given it a much more loaded name, a parallel NRC. That is an explosive accusation, comparing it to the highly controversial National Register of Citizens, a process that's tied up in questions of national identity and citizenship itself.
Okay, so let's break down the two sides of this fight. On the left, you have the critics. They argue this is not just some simple cleanup. They say it unfairly puts the burden of proof on citizens, asking for documents that feel more like a citizenship test than a voter registration check. They're worried it's creating this whole new class of doubtful citizens. But then, on the right, the Election Commission is pushing back hard. They say, look, this is just our constitutional duty to keep the voter lists accurate. And, crucially, they stress this is not the NRC. It only affects your right to vote, and hey, anyone who gets removed can just reapply. The whole thing really boils down to one question. Is this just routine maintenance, or is it a fundamental threat to the right to vote?
All right, let's shift gears now. We're moving from a nation's internal politics to the global chessboard. We are heading way up north to Greenland, a massive island of ice that has suddenly become a major hotbed of U.S. strategic interest.
So first, a quick primer. Greenland is, well, huge. It's the world's largest island. It's an autonomous territory of Denmark, but geographically, it's actually part of North America. It's mostly covered in ice, and this is important. It's protected under NATO's Mutual Defense Clause.
So why is everyone so focused on it all of a sudden? Reason 1, Arctic rivalry. As the ice melts, brand new shipping routes are opening up, and that's turning the Arctic into a new arena for competition between the US, Russia, and China. And Greenland? It's sitting right in the middle of all of it.
Second, it's a critical military choke point. Greenland forms one side of what military strategists call the GIUK gap. That's Greenland, Iceland, and the UK. You can think of it as a gateway to the North Atlantic. Controlling and monitoring who sails through that gate is absolutely vital for naval power. And, the US isn't starting from scratch here. It already operates the Pitufik space base way up in northern Greenland. That base is a crucial piece of its early warning system against ballistic missile attacks. And finally, it's about what's hiding under all that ice. Greenland is believed to have one of the world's largest untapped deposits of rare earth elements. We're talking about the essential minerals for everything, from your smartphone and electric car all the way to advanced fighter jets. In a world that runs on this stuff, controlling the source is a massive strategic prize.
For our third story, we're heading back to India. We're moving from strategic ambitions in the cold Arctic to the massive concrete infrastructure projects that are literally reshaping a nation's physical backbone. Just take a look at this. In the global race to electrify national rail networks, India isn't just competing, it is absolutely leading the pack. Indian Railways has electrified nearly its entire broad gauge network. We're talking 99.2%. That is a staggering achievement that, as you can see, puts it way ahead of other major economies.
And the impact of this, it's enormous. This massive shift from diesel to electric is projected to cut carbon emissions by about 60 million tons every single year. That's a huge step toward the country's climate goals and its energy security.
Now, beyond the railways, the government is also rolling out a massive public-private partnership pipeline. You can think of this as a giant catalog of 852 ready-to-go infrastructure projects, all designed to attract private investment from home and around the world.
So what's the economic logic here? Well, it's all about the multiplier effect. India's central bank estimates that for every single rupee the government invests in infrastructure, it actually generates between 2.5 and 3 rupees of activity in the wider economy. This pipeline is designed to be a powerful engine for exactly that kind of growth.
And for our final story, we're shifting from that huge national scale down to something much more personal, the water that flows from our taps, and a public health crisis that's been hiding in plain sight.
This story was kicked off by a tragedy in the city of Indore, where 15 people died recently because of contaminated water. But as investigators started digging into the data, they found something surprising and, frankly, very disturbing.
This table right here shows the paradox at the heart of this story. Look at the city of Bhopal. They tested a massive number of water samples and officially had a low failure rate. And yet, they recorded nearly 400,000 cases of severe diarrhea. Now look at Indore. They tested far fewer samples, had a higher failure rate on paper, but reported fewer cases. See the problem? The numbers just don't add up. The official data on water safety simply doesn't match the reality of public health.
The investigation points to some deep, systemic failures. First, there's decaying infrastructure. Up to 40% of urban water is just lost to leaks, and old water pipes are often running right next to sewage lines. Second, there's a huge accountability vacuum. In just these 2 cities, over 13 billion rupees, money that was meant for repairs, went unspent.
So, we've gone from the electoral roles that shape a democracy, to the military bases that project global power, to the railways that build an economy, and finally, to the pipes that deliver our water. These are the systems running in the background of our lives. So the question I want to leave you with is this: which invisible system that impacts your life will you see differently now?